Okay, so, oh, sorry, Daryl. We might get this underway as people, it's only just time that here comes more people. So as I'm introducing, I'm sure a few more might trickle in. Anyway, that's welcome to the last talk this afternoon. I think it's been a fascinating afternoon so far, all very, heavy social sciencey. So it's going to be wonderful to hear something which is deeply in the humanities. And I think in the current state of the humanities around our country, at least, and I know in New Zealand, we have to keep up the good fight. This afternoon's speaker is Chia-rong, who's originally from Taiwan, educated in Taiwan and in the US, and relatively recently has taken up a position at Canterbury University in Christchurch. He's an associate professor there in the Department of Global, Cultural and Language Studies. Chia-rong is, as you'll see, works in fascinating areas, particularly in the area of what now has become known as Sinophone literature. And he's the author of 2 monographs, both of which I can recommend because I know them. One of them is called Supernatural Sinophone Taiwan and Beyond from 2016, and Remapping the Contested Sinosphere, the Cross-Cultural Landscape and Ethnoscape of Taiwan from 2020. He's also co-edited Taiwan Literature in the 21st Century Critical Reader and the Southern Diaspora in Sinophone Literature, Moving Borders. He's a remarkably productive scholar, always, how should I put this? Very well informed and very thoughtful, which is not what you can say for many scholars today. But today he will diverge slightly into a new area that is moving from the written word to the electronic game. Yes. So Chia-rong, the floor is yours, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the talk.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, for your very kind words. I just want to express my appreciation of the generous support of ANU. I really appreciate your hospitality, Ben, Nancy, and the staff from Taipei Economic and Cultural Office. I'm delighted to be here today, sharing some thoughts about video games produced in Taiwan. It's actually a working paper, a working chapter for my 3rd monograph project. I have been doing research on Taiwan and Sinophone literature for over 15 years. But in recent years, I started to work on video games. I can definitely see the correlation between literature and video games. I know I probably need to travel far to convince you it is the case. I'll try my best, but maybe towards the end you will not be convinced, but it's fine. I will work harder, okay, to win you over. So it's actually a project from my 3rd monograph, as I just mentioned. I have finished 3 chapters, and this is just the 4th chapter I'm working on. I do hope that I can finish the chapter by the end of the year. So I have a draft, but today I don't feel like reading the draft to you. I'd like to turn it into a conversation if I can. So I just want to share, as I mentioned in the very beginning, I will let you know what brought me to this point, okay, why I'm doing this research and why this research matters. So again, I will try my best, and I will get started right now. Okay, so for this research, I normally receive 2 major questions. The first question is like this: why indigenous, and why now? I think for people who are familiar with Taiwan, you can understand that in recent years, Taiwanese indigenous people and their culture have become an integral part of Taiwan studies. As you know, there are 16 indigenous groups in Taiwan. They are recognized by the state, by the people, on the island. And actually, this does not just happen in one day, and actually took decades for indigenous people in Taiwan to achieve the current status. I think the campaign can be dated back to the 1980s when indigenous activists and artists, writers were gathered together to fight for their rights. And so they initiated a series of movements hoping to be recognized by the state and by non-indigenous residents in Taiwan. Their efforts were paid off in about 10 years. Then in 1996, the Council of Indigenous People was established in Taiwan, and followed by the enactment of the Indigenous People Basic Law in 2005. And then we have the launch of Taiwan Indigenous Television in the same year. And then if you still remember the news from roughly 9-10 years ago, former President Tsai Ing-wen issued an official apology to indigenous peoples in Taiwan for their struggle, for the discrimination they endured in the past 400 years. So that's just a brief historical backdrop about indigenous people in Taiwan. So that's why indigenous people have been used or utilized as a front or face of Taiwan in the 21st century. And I will continue to talk about that in today's talk. The second question I received the most will be this one: why video games and why now? I think most of you already listened to the talks given by my colleagues. They talk about serious stuff, right? Cross-strait relations, China, Taiwan relations, US-China, Taiwan relations, energy security, national security, big topics. And then I do video games. I have to say, it has become a very challenging project for me to deal with. When I do literature, people say, well, you do literature, we understand, because it is literature, right? But when I tell people that I do video games, they will say, whoa, video game, why? Are video games important? And last week, we actually had the first round of Taiwan update in Wellington. And I received very interesting, thought-provoking questions and statements. But there's one specific comment that really touched me. We have this this participant in the audience asking me, or making a comment saying that I don't want my kids to play video games. I totally understand, right? Okay. My parents did not want me to play video games when I was a kid. I totally understand. And actually, I stopped playing video games because I wanted to be a video son 40 years ago. Seriously, I just started doing something naughty. Just not video gaming. But anyway, there are actually two major rationales behind my research project. First, as I highlighted in the very beginning, there's actually close bound between literature and video game narratives. I'm not the one who started in theory, and actually this trend, this theoretical field can be traced back to Western academia in the 1990s. We have big names like Janet Moray, Henry Jenkins. These scholars have taught us so much about the potentiality of video gaming. Well, we are living in a digital world, right? Video gaming is playing such an important role as a form of entertainment. But these scholars really teach us how to analyze and how to take a closer look at video games. We can talk about different aspects of video gaming: historical, cultural, social, political, everything. It's not just about entertainment, it's beyond that level. And that's something I want to highlight in my research. So the second rationale is about the importance of its industry. I don't know what you do for fun. Do you go to the theaters? Do you go to the movies? Yes, if you are contributing to the revenue of around 30 billion USD every year. Like 30 billion. Do you listen to music? Do you have Spotify account, Apple Music or YouTube Music? If yes, your response is yes, you're contributing to another part of 30 billion. How about video gaming? Much higher. To my surprise, when I saw the figure, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? But that's the reality we're facing in 2025. We have the figures from last year, very new, 2024. So as you can see, the revenue earned through video game industry, video release, the sale of video games, is 3 times larger than the revenues earned through films and music combined. So that's the power of video gaming. But don't get me wrong, I'm not in a position to say that video games are more important than the other media form. This is not my intention to do so. I just want to raise the issue and let you know that it is indeed a fast growing industry. And actually, it is projected to grow by at least 10% this year. So we can see the wider gap between video gaming and the other forms of entertainment. So I want to continue to talk about the development of Sinophone video games. Or Sinophone, if you don't know what it means, just treat it as the alternative to the word Chinese speaking. Okay, but Sinophone is a theory used with a clear political agenda. It's about the confrontation between mainland China and Chinese communities outside of mainland China. So in the past few years, we can definitely observe the development cycle games with a focus on China. Have you heard about Genshin Impact or Yuanshen in Mandarin? You've never heard about the game before? You're probably too old. I'm sorry to put it this way. And actually, it's such a popular game in China and beyond. And actually, my Kiwi student play Genshin Impact. My nephews, my niece in Taiwan play Genshin Impact as well. It's such a popular game among the young generation. And its mother company, Tencent, earned a lot of billions of dollars through the release of the game. And last year, there was also a global success from China. The name is Black Myth Wukong. Do you know how many copies it sold?
100 million.
100, not that many. 100 million. Oh, 100 million. No, not many, but 25 million.
Wow.
25 million. So each copy is sold for 60 USD. So you can do the math. Okay, it's a big market out there. But don't get me wrong, my focus is on Taiwan. Okay, I don't think I need to endorse. I endorse this. Well, obvious Chinese companies are getting great success in video game production. My focus is actually on the development or the history of Chinese language game developed in Taiwan. I'm an old guy, so actually I started playing Chinese language games in late 1980s and early 1990s. I have to say I played all these games when I was a kid, and I'm proud of myself for playing all these games. Probably not a good thing to brag about, but still. But as you can see, the early games developed in Taiwan are Chinese bound. These games are focused on or based on the Chinese history and culture. They are normally the adaptation from literary classics like the Romance of the Three Kingdoms or the wuxia fiction by Jin Yong and Gu Long. And these games are very, very popular. It really opened a new door to Taiwanese gamers. And actually, these games were also sold to other Chinese-speaking communities, including mainland China, Singapore, and some other Southeast Asian countries. And these video games great success, just not as successful as these two, the legendary twin swords of Soul Start, the so-called 大羽双剑 in Mandarin. On the left, we have 仙剑奇侠传, the legend of Sword and Fairy, also known as Chinese Paladin. And on the right, we have 轩辕剑, or 轩辕 Sword in English. So these two IPs were extremely popular, and they have been adapted into different forms of art or entertainment, TV series, graphic novels, fan fiction, and so on and so forth in mainland China. So each franchise has released more than 10 titles of video games. It's how popular these two video games are from Taiwan, of course. But last year, Softstar decided to sell these two IPs to Chinese companies, ending the era of these Chinese-bound video game from Taiwan. So we have the two greatest, most influential IPs from Taiwan, but now they are owned by China, not by Taiwan. When I shared the news in the talk I gave at National Zhenji University in Taiwan last year, the audience was so disappointed. They said, well, it's our treasure. How could we share, or how could you, cut tie with these IPs and sell the IPs these IPs to China? It doesn't make any sense. And guess what? There was a writer from Softstar in the audience, and he answered the question for me. He attended my talk because he's interested. Well, he's a writer, representing Softstar, and his answer was short and simple. Chinese-bound designs are no longer their concerns. They are not interested in making Chinese-themed video games anymore. And that's the short but powerful answer from the writer of Softstar. So actually, we can observe this growing localist trend in terms of the production of video games in Taiwan. I have some notable titles in the past few years. So we have Detention, released in 2017 as a horror video game, and extremely popular, influential. It was actually adapted into a feature film in 2019, earning multiple recognitions such as Taiwan's Golden Horse Awards. And then the following year, and then it was also adapted into a TV series on Netflix in 2020. It is set in the 1960s in Taiwan, about the Taiwan's White Terror period. So in a way, you can see the strong connection between detention and the traditional White Terror narratives in Taiwan literature. And then on the left, we have another game released by the same company, by Kendall Games, named Devotion. Although it does not have a direct link to the White Terror period, we can see how a video game can be politicized in the digital space and also in our real world. This game, Devotion, is actually banned on Steam, the largest international video game platform, simply because one of the developers on the team decided to create an image of a Taoist charm. And it says, you need to look very closely to find out what it says on the charm. It says, we need to prove you idiot, you moron. Let me give you a little bit backstory. Winnie the Pooh is banned in China. Yes, this Pooh Bear is banned in China. Do you know why?
Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping, yeah, so you know the political issues. So when Chinese gamers found out, they were just furious, and they filed complaints against the game. That's why the game has been removed. You still can download, you can buy the game on the official website, Red Candle Game, but it's no longer available on Steam. And there are some other titles around very similar political backdrop regarding Taiwan political struggle and turmoil under the martial law, like Half-Life, the Parkwheel, Taiwanese rendition, Ghostbusters. Then I would like to draw your attention to the focus of my research, which is indigenous video games in Taiwan. So I have some goals to achieve. I want to use video games, I treat video games as practice to preserve and share cultural heritage and empower indigenous narratives. And then in my research, I actually select 4 indigenous video games for sure. And then I will use them as examples to showcase how digital media can be utilized in response to indigenous stories, traditions, and values in engaging interactive format. And then use actually a project contributing to ongoing discourse on cultural diversity, inclusivity in the looting world. Empty talks. Okay, these are the goals, ideal goals for me to achieve. Okay, but when I started doing this research, I realized that how challenging it is to achieve these goals. It's simply impossible because video games are complex medium, and there are actually a lot of challenges, a lot of roadblocks for me to overcome. So in my research, I'm actually in a position to combine the two different fields, indigenous studies and the game studies, to help you better understand the importance and the agency of indigenous video games from Taiwan. I would like to give you a quick survey of Western or indigenous video games from the Western world. Of course, my research will be theoretically engaged so that I can better present Taiwan's video games, indigenous video games, in response to the localist trend and also in response to the global Austronesian discourse. So actually, there are multiple notable genres in terms of indigenous video game development. We have genres like adventure, educational games, action games, and mythology-based games. Some other topics include sci-fi, science fiction, empathy, horror, and so on and so forth. I want to move on to a very short list of indigenous video games developed in the Western world. Take this one, for example, we have Prey, a video game released in 2006. The game is centered around the Native American protagonist struggling, trying to find a way to fit in the contemporary American society. And then the story or the narrative of the game takes a drastic turn. Then we have because the protagonist is tasked with confronting aliens. So yes, we have the Native American hero trying to fight back, fight against the aliens with the assistance of ancestral spirits. And here we have another example, Assassin's Creed 3 from 2012. So the protagonist is half Caucasian and half indigenous Native American. It's actually a very interesting game that reflects on colonial histories and post-colonial conditions. And here is actually probably the most famous indigenous video games from 2014. And a lot of scholars and gamers argue that it is the first, probably the most ambitious indigenous-led video game in history from 2014. What does that mean? Indigenous-led is not just indigenous, it is indigenous-led. I will talk a little bit more about that. So think about this. So here we have the girl of Inupiat tribe in Alaska, and then players need to control a girl along with an Arctic fox. So it's actually an indigenous game that follows the indigenous epistemologies based on people in Alaska. So the game mechanics also reflect on the indigenous knowledge system. That's why we have the term never alone. The girl is never alone because she's always accompanied by the fox. And as players, we need to alternate between the girl and the fox, trying to solve different puzzles and trying to complete the missions, and to walk through this storm-ravaged, snow-covered landscape. And then after you complete a certain level, you will be given a snapshot of Inupiat culture. They call it cultural insights, and we get to listen to the original, authentic dialogue or speech given by Inupiat people or the elders. And so that's why we call it indigenous-led. It's not the projects, not the video game dictated by Caucasian or non-indigenous people or designers. It's indigenous-centered project that really teaches about the people, the people and their culture, their practice, and so on and so forth. Then we'll move on to this mini game called Thunderbird Strike. This game is kind of tricky. The mini game, so we have players will control this thunderbird summoned by Native Americans ancestral spirits. So you will control the thunderbird to destroy vehicles hired by the oil company. So from the indigenous perspective, it's actually a satisfying move, right? Okay, because you are confronting these evildoers on the indigenous land. But from the perspective of the oil company, it's nothing but eco-terrorism. But I will leave that to you. Okay, so here we have another interesting title called When Rivers Were Trails from 2019. It's actually a direct response to the classic 1971 game named the Oregon Trail. So the Oregon Trail is a video game around the allotment era in American history. It's about how the white settlers embarking on the westward journey, expanding their territory, white people's perspective, right? Then here we have the indigenous perspective. It's actually a video game co-produced by the Indian Land Tenor Foundation and also by Michigan State University in the United States. So this is actually a video game introduced to players to educate them, to help them better understand the history and struggle of Native Americans in the 19th century. So I've been talking about the games, but I think from the Northern Hemisphere, I just feel obligated to introduce some other games from the Southern Hemisphere. So here I have a very good example from New Zealand. It's called Sparks. But it's not just a video game. It's actually a treatment. It's a game designed to help people and participants, players with depression. So it's a video game with real healing powers, scientifically proven in different experiments and scenarios. So basically, you just need to control the protagonist to defy the attacks of nets, which stand for gloomy, negative, automatic thoughts. So your job is to heal, right? Okay, so it's actually a very famous title in New Zealand for fun and also for healing. So you can see different versions. We have the mobile version, the 3D version. We have also have the mobile version. So this game is so important because it is another good example of indigenous-led video game development. It's a game that features the knowledge of indigenous people in New Zealand, the Maori people. So we have the guide, the Maori guide, the gentleman will give us tips to better handle stress, pressure, so that we can fight back against the pressure, fight back against depression. And I would like to move on to another title in development. It's called Guardian Maya. It has been in development for years, and the game community in New Zealand is still very excited about the development of the game, and they are waiting for it. I'm still waiting for it. The thing about it is you will be given the opportunity to ride a moa, which is already extinct on the planet Earth. So there are some other issues I will talk about, but I want to take a quick stop so that we can go over some theoretical issues. So regarding how video games can be analyzed in the academic circle. So some video games can be treated or can be analyzed through the lens of post-colonialism. I don't know if you heard about video games like Civilization, Age of Empire. Yeah. Yes, okay, famous titles, right? Extremely popular. But they are not indigenous games, or they are not indigenous-led video games. And actually, these video games represent the imperial or a colonial logical mindset, right? Because how do you win the game? How do you win in the game? Basically, you just need to defeat the other civilizations, right? Defeat the other nations, right? It's about conquest. It's about the extension of your territory. It's about the accumulation of your wealth and your resources. And these demands, these goals are actually against the core values of many indigenous communities. So it's something I would like to highlight. And then we have some other examples. We have from the past few years. So we can talk about how scholars are actually initiating a campaign to take a closer look at video games in an academic way, in a serious way. I know it's not about cross-strait relations. I know it's not about US-Taiwan relation. I know it's not about the polarized political system in Taiwan, but still, okay, it's a research field, relatively new research field when it comes to Taiwan studies. And I'm probably the first or one of the few scholars working on this topic outside of Taiwan. So to me, it's actually a new field. It's not unlike writing a new dissertation, a PhD dissertation. I don't miss my life as a PhD student, but now it's like I'm reliving my PhD journey. So we have some other examples, like Never Alone, again, as a groundbreaking work, and we can also talk about how indigenous content can be lost in the process of adaptation or lost in the process of video game development, because a lot of times developers will make changes on indigenous knowledge so that they can better serve the purpose of the institution, the state, or sometimes to achieve commercial success. There are different reasons behind the game development. Then we have some other cases like this one. I really like the case of the semi-game jam. It's actually an experiment from several years ago. They have this video game development party held in Finland. And the Sami people are actually indigenous people in Northern European countries like Sweden, Norway, Finland, and part of Russia. So actually, within a few days, indigenous talents and non-indigenous developers or experts gather together to develop video games that feature or showcase Sami people's culture and history. So they can incorporate different elements from the Sami community, and it turned out to be a great success. And just another example regarding what an indigenous net project could be like in our time. And there are some other issues. I think due to time limit, I want to move on to Taiwanese video games. So as I mentioned earlier, early Taiwanese video games are Chinese bound in the past few years. Han Taiwanese bound, right? It can be a while. These developers are representing the generation of sunflower movement more than 10 years ago. You can see how these developers are connected with a specific political agenda. We really want to better represent Taiwan in a specific political light. But then we also have the urge to represent indigenous people in video games, in the digital space. Actually, there are a lot of free online indigenous games you can find. But these games are mostly made for kids. It's understandable, right? You can probably keep your kids busy on one afternoon. But these games need more work, right? But I think they just want to carry out a very straightforward goals and without direct link to specific indigenous epistemologies. But then there are also some other serious indigenous video games from Taiwan, especially this one is called the Princess Baleng or Baleng Gongzhu from 2002. Earlier, I mentioned Never Alone. I hope you remember the title from 2014, and people just could not stop talking about it because it is arguing that Never Alone is the first indigenous led project or the most successful. I agree, but I just wanted to draw attention to a very interesting video game sharing a very similar goal in 2002, 12 years before the release of Never Alone, and this is the outcome. So this video game is based on the Rukai legend about the tribal prince, magical journey, and her union with the incarnation of the sacred snake deity, and it's part of the Rukai belief. And this video game is so interesting because it really carries out the digital practice of indigenous epistemologies. So in the game, you will learn from the NPC or from the elders. It's just like the practice you will have as an individual in any indigenous tribe or community. And then you will learn how to collect ingredients, how to make Rukai dishes. Like you will learn how to make mullet wine or a sticky rice cake as an indigenous. So it is again exciting because it's actually a cultural and experiential practice for the players. It doesn't matter if you are indigenous. Okay, it's just a game made for every player. So we're interested in the topic, but still, although it is successful in some different ways, it is flawed in terms of control. I actually played the game more than 20 years ago. I have to say, it gave me a headache. The change of angles and the movement kind of clumsy, difficult to control the characters and so on and so forth. But still, I don't want to undermine the achievement made by this video game. I think I'm wearing different hats, right? As a literary critic, as a video gamer, and also as a historian trying to provide a substantial history about the video games developed in Taiwan. And here we have the second title in my research. The name is Tayal. We know it means Tayal people in Taiwan, one of the 16 officially recognized groups in Taiwan. Is very fun to play. If you are as old as I am, you know the game series called Mega Man, right? Okay, so picture this. Okay, it's actually the Mega Man with an indigenous skin. Okay, so basically it is a ripoff, right? Okay, so I like the idea. Okay, as a gamer, I really like the idea, and it's fun to play, very challenging. But still, we don't get to have a direct link or a closer engagement with Tayal people's culture. We don't playing the game. We not give you the traces. Will not give you the clues in connection with the tribal community. It's all about confronting the stylized animals or creatures from Taiwan/Formosa. Is how they are named in the game, but it's in a general way. But we don't get to better understand the tribe or the community on a deeper level. That's why this game could be problematic. And after you complete the game, you will tick the box, and this is the one last achievement you can make in the game. It's called inherit all memories. My question is, what memories? The protagonist memory, right? Okay, the Tayal boy or Tayal boy, but still, again, it's more like a personal memory, but it's not like a fantasy beyond the cultural norm of the Tayal tribe. The third one I would like to highlight is called VuVu. It's a video game developed by students at National Yunlin University of Science and Technology. VuVu is used as an educational tool to teach students about indigenous practices in Taiwan. So it's not directly linked to any specific indigenous tribe in Taiwan. We can see it's more like a combination or different practices. So we will develop a indigenous awareness by playing the game. You learn how to gather, how to grow and harvest. You learn how to hunt like an indigenous subject, and that's what the game is about. So this game is actually a very is a notable title. It is used in the teaching and learning environment at primary and intermediate schools. Still, we can recognize the game as a digital model for developing stronger connection with the passive indigenous community. The last game, okay, I know it's coming to an end, so I just want to talk about this game to have the conclusion. So this game is called Gadvia. When I found the game last year, when I started doing my research, I found this game. I was so excited. I started playing the game on the same day. It's based on this otherworldly Australian fantasy. And it's like, to me, it's like the enhanced edition of VuVu. Okay, so learn how to gather, how to cook, how to hunt as an indigenous in the game. If you play the adventure mode, you will learn how to communicate with NPCs, and you'll learn from these Pacific Islanders. So you will learn to develop better understanding of the indigenous communities across boundaries, across cultures. But the game also bothers me because there's a mode called the sing mode. So in order to advance in the adventure mode, you need to play the sing mode. And all the songs in the sing mode are Japanese songs. Which is really, I don't know. I just don't know. Australian, Japanese, I don't know. It doesn't ring the bell. It doesn't. I just don't understand the logic as a gamer. So I think it explains why the lack of engagement with indigenous or Australasian music really killed the game. So that's why the server of the game was already terminated, was shut down in January this year, 2025. So I still have the game on my phone, so I can play the sim mode. But actually, what I want to play is the adventure mode, right? Because I want to better understand Australian culture. I love Japanese culture, but it's not why I downloaded and played the game. But anyway, conclusion. After this, so here is another game. I didn't play the game, but I just found it funny when I found the game on the internet. It's called 逆统战, the reverse front. It was first released as a board game in 2020. So the company sold the board game to players, and they also received donations from the player community. They promised that they would develop a video game out of the board game. So it's actually a taboo board game in the context of mainland China. So you can see, you can play different power, different forces. You can choose to represent the Red Army, China, or you can choose to represent any other army fighting against China. That's why the game is banned in Hong Kong, in mainland China, anywhere. But again, I didn't play the game, but I found it funny. If you choose to play Taiwan, you choose Taiwan as your camp, you'll be greeted by this gentleman, this indigenous gentleman, these are Tayal gentlemen. The Tayal gentleman will be one of your teammates, like a Captain Taiwan. This Tayal gentleman will be the in the vanguard fighting against Great Army together with you. But I don't know. I haven't played the game, so maybe it is for next project. So conclusion. So what do I want to achieve through this research? I think I would like to make reference to important sources. The first one is James Clifford's Returns Becoming Indigenous in the 21st Century. It's actually a scholarly book published in 2013. So Clifford has a very clear agenda. He believes that indigeneity is not a fixed identity. It's actually an identity that's constantly evolving. That's why every indigenous subject is constantly evolving, is becoming in the process of becoming indigenous. Because we are living in a globalized world, and the indigenous identity will not be one-dimensional, right? So it's important for indigenous subject to return to the roots, but you don't get stuck in the back, in the past. You actually you are mobilized to move on toward the future. And that connects to the second book I would like to highlight, which is a book written by my colleague in Taiwan at National Tsinghua University, not Tsinghua University in Beijing, but Tsinghua University in Hsinchu, Taiwan. Chen Zhifan. Chen Zhifan obviously is following Clifford's take on becoming indigenous, but she has a clear focus, right? She has a better understanding about how to become indigenous in Taiwan. Do you know how you can become indigenous in Taiwan? Do you know? You have to apply. You have to apply. The state will tell you if you are qualified, right? Okay, you need to be, or your father, either your father or mother must be indigenous so that you will be qualified to be one of them, so you can become indigenous. According to Chen Zhifan, becoming indigenous is a constant struggle and adaptation. It's actually a cultural, political, and even legal practice. It's impossible for you to identify yourself as indigenous. Not that simple. You need to have the recognition from the state. And then I would like to talk about my take on becoming indigenous. Maybe it's not that difficult. Maybe you don't need approval from the state. Maybe you can just play indigenous video games so that you can become indigenous. Don't get me wrong, I'm not deranged. Okay, I do have some theoretical backings to support my idea. Because when you are playing a video game, you are actually enhancing your player agency. You're really putting yourself in the shoes of the characters, right? But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that after you play a game, you become indigenous. I'm talking about the process of becoming indigenous within the digital landscape. But I think that process is important because scholars around the world have started to recognize the importance of video games, especially indigenous video games. They want people to play. In Taiwan, indigenous people only account for 2.5% of the total population. You don't want to make a game for 2.5% only, right? If you want to make money, you need to target, the majority as well, right? Yes, but it's important to put together a team that represents different sides, right? So that's why we can learn from the semi-game jam, right? We can have the collaboration between indigenous and non-indigenous talents. And I think that's the future I'm looking forward to in the following years. I know it's not a complete project. I just want to share what I have so far. Again, I would love to finish this chapter by the end of the year, but I'm still working on it. And I'm happy to take questions in your comments. Thank you.